It was a hot Friday afternoon in the middle of the city. People were busy, walking fast, cars honking, life moving as usual. In the middle of all this, a tall black man named Jamal Green walked quietly into a small cafe. He wore a clean blue shirt, black pants, and carried a small bag. His face looked peaceful, but his eyes showed deep thoughts. He had just returned from working overseas for many years. Today was special. It was his mother's birthday. He wanted to surprise her with her favorite chocolate cake. Jamal stood in line at the counter waiting patiently. He looked around. The cafe was full. People were drinking coffee, talking, typing on laptops. It felt good to be back home. He smiled softly. Suddenly, the door opened, and two police officers walked in. One was a heavy white man with a red face and a large mustache. The other was thinner, younger, and had sharp eyes. Both looked serious. They looked around the cafe. Then their eyes landed on Jamal. Suspicion begins without any greeting. They walked straight to him. Officer 1. Hey, you, step aside. Need to ask you something. Jamal blinked, confused but calm. Is something wrong, sir? Officer 2. We got a call. Robbery suspect. You match the description. Jamal. Robbery. I think there's some mistake. I just came in for cake. Officer 1. ID now. Jamal slowly pulled out his wallet and handed them his ID. The officer looked at the ID, then laughed. Officer 1. This ain't real. What is this? Some prank. Officer 2. This ID's fake. You think you're smart, huh? Jamal stayed. .com says, sir, that's my real ID. I work for a human rights organization abroad. I just arrived 2 days ago. They didn't listen. The crowd gathers. A few people in the cafe noticed the scene. Some took out their phones. A woman whispered to her friend, he doesn't look like a thief, but no one stepped forward. Officer 2, hands behind your back. Jamal, please, I haven't done anything. Officer 1, we'll find out at the station. They handcuffed him right there. Jamal didn't fight. He just looked down at the floor. A little girl in the cafe looked at him and asked her mom, Mommy, what did he do? Her mother pulled her away and said nothing. Jamal's heart sank. One last callous. They pushed him toward the police car outside. Jamal turned his head slightly. Jamal, sir, can I make one call? The older officer laughed. To who? Your lawyer. Jamal. Yes, something like that. The younger officer rolled his eyes. Fine, make it quick. They unlocked one hand and gave him his phone. Jamal dialed a number without looking at the screen. His fingers moved fast. He held the phone to his ear. The officers waited, arms crossed. After 2 rings, someone picked up. Voice on phone. Marcus Green speaking. Jamal. Hey, it's me. There was a short silence. Marcus. Jamal, what's wrong? Jamal softly. I'm being arrested. For no reason. The voice on the phone changed quickly. Marcus, put the officer on the phone now. Jamal handed the phone to Officer 1. Officer 1. Yeah, who's this? There was silence. Then, the officer's eyes widened. He quickly straightened his back. Yes, sir. Yes, I didn't know. Yes, of course, sir. He handed the phone back to Jamal and took a step back. Shock on their faces. The younger officer looked confused. What happened? The older one whispered. His brother is Marcus Green, the U.S. Attorney General. The younger officer's mouth fell open. His face turned pale. They both looked at Jamal. This time there was no laughter. The crowd was watching. Some people had stopped recording. One man whispered, Wait, did he say Attorney General? The officers quickly removed the handcuffs. Officer 1 softly, sir, we apologize. There was a misunderstanding. Jamal didn't say a word. He just looked at them with calm eyes. The same eyes that now carried pain and power. The cafe was silent. People were staring at Jamal, but not like before. Now their eyes were wide with surprise. The officers who once mocked him were now standing straight, nervous and pale. The older officer had just spoken to Marcus Green, the Attorney General of the United States, and more importantly, Jamal's brother. Jamal picked up his phone again and walked outside slowly. The air felt heavy. The cafe door closed behind him. A brother's protection. Marcus's voice came clearly through the phone. Marcus, are you okay? Jamal calmly. They handcuffed me in front of everyone. Said my ID was fake. There was a pause. Marcus, I'm calling the police. Commissioner, right now, stay there. You are not going anywhere. Jamal looked at the officers. Jamal to them. My brother will call your boss. You should wait. The officers nodded without a word. One of them wiped sweat from his forehead. The big call 5 minutes later. The older officer's phone rang. Officer 1 softly. Yes, sir, he's here. No, we didn't know. Yes, we are handling it. Of course, sir. He hung up and walked toward Jamal. Officer 1. Sir, we deeply apologize. We should have checked the facts before acting. Jamal didn't answer. His silence spoke louder than any words. Cameras start rolling. Young woman near the cafe who had recorded everything uploaded the video online with the title They Arrested the Wrong Man Until He Called His Brother. Within an hour, the video had 10,000 views. People started commenting. This is what black people go through daily. They only stopped because of who he knows. Why did they even arrest him without proof? The video went viral. News channels picked it up. Reporters came to the cafe. Cameras flashed. Jamal stood in front of the media, quiet but strong. The reporters questioned. One reporter pushed a mic toward Jamal. Reporter, sir, do you want to say something about what happened today? Jamal looked at the camera. Jamal softly. It's not just about me. This happens every day to people who don't have a brother in power. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. But his voice shook the hearts of everyone watching. Police. In trouble that evening, the police commissioner held a press conference. Commissioner, what happened today was wrong. We will investigate the officers involved. Everyone deserves respect and fair treatment, no matter their color or clothes. But people were angry. They knew this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Many shared their own stories online, stories without a powerful brother to protect them. A flashback. Their childhood. That night, Jamal sat alone in his room, thinking. He remembered when he and Marcus were just kids. Their mother used to say, one of you will fight with your heart, the other with your mind, but always protect each other. Marcus had always been the smart one. He became a lawyer, then a judge, and now the top lawyer in the country. Jamal chose a different path. He worked in Africa and South America, helping poor communities. He didn't have a famous name, but he had purpose. Now, their two worlds had collided. The pain behind the power. Marcus called again that night. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Jamal, I should have been there. Jamal, you were there. Your name saved me. But what about those who don't have anyone? There was silence. Marcus, I'll make sure this doesn't get buried. The beginning of something bigger. The next morning, people gathered outside the police station. Some held signs that read, Justice for Jamal, protect the innocent. This is not just one story. Something had started. Something big. As Jamal watched the growing crowd from a distance, a tear rolled down his cheek, not because of what happened to him, but because of what might finally change. Narrator voiceover. One phone call saved him, but now his voice might save many. What happens when the brother of power becomes the voice of the people? As he walked back into the cafe, free again, the camera froze on his face. Narrator voiceover. He was judged by his color, not his character. But what happens when the system that tried to silence him meets the brother who runs it? The city woke up to headlines that shook everyone. Man wrongfully arrested, brother is U.S. Attorney General. One call changed everything. Justice system under fire after viral arrest video. News channels showed Jamal's video. All morning, people watched how he was arrested, laughed at, and then how the officers changed their behavior after just one phone call. Social media was full of comments. Some were angry, some were heartbroken, but all were talking about one thing. Injustice. Everyone wants the truth. Journalists began digging deeper. Who was Jamal Green? What had he done? Was he really innocent? They found out Jamal was a human rights worker. He had spent 6 years helping poor families in Africa. He had received awards from international groups. He had no criminal record and even a parking ticket. People were shocked. This man had helped thousands but was treated like a criminal because of how he looked. TV shows and talk panels. That evening, Jamal was invited to a live TV show. He sat quietly on a chair. Across from him sat a host and two guests, a former cop and a civil rights lawyer. The host asked host Jamal, tell us what went through your mind when you were arrested. Jamal softly, I stayed calm. I've seen this happen before. My friends, two strangers. I knew shouting wouldn't help, so I made the call. Host, and that call saved you. Jamal, yes, but that's the problem. It shouldn't take power to be treated like a person. The studio went silent. A call from the White House after the show. Jamal's phone rang. It wasn't Marcus this time, it was someone from the White House. They wanted to speak with both Marcus and Jamal. White House staff on phone. The president watched your interview. He's moved, he wants to meet. Jamal was surprised. Why me? Staff. Because your story is now everyone's story. Police department under pressure. Back in the city, the police department was facing heavy pressure. People protested peacefully outside the station every day. They held signs that read, enough is enough, stop judging by skin, who protects us from the police. An internal investigation had started. The two officers who arrested Jamal were placed on temporary leave, but many thought that wasn't enough. Some asked, what if Jamal didn't have a powerful brother? Would they even care? The brothers meet again. Marcus flew to the city to meet Jamal. They hadn't seen each other in over a year. In a private room, they hugged tightly. Marcus, I never wanted this to happen to you. Jamal, I know, but now that it has, maybe it means something bigger. Marcus, let's make it mean something. They sat for hours, talking about justice, power, and the pain that lives in silence. They didn't just want to fix Jamal's case, they wanted to use it to fix the system. The first speech. A few days later, Jamal stood on the steps of City Hall. A crowd waited to hear him speak. Cameras were everywhere. He looked nervous but determined. Jamal, I was arrested because I looked like someone else. But I am someone. I'm someone's son. I'm someone's brother. I've helped people around the world. And yet I wasn't treated like a human being. This isn't just about me. This is about every person who doesn't get to make that one lucky phone call. Let's change that together. The crowd clapped. Some cried. Some stood in silence, deeply moved. Back at home, Jamal sat alone on his bed. He looked at a photo of him and Marcus from their childhood. He whispered to himself, This started with handcuffs, but maybe, just maybe, it will end with change. The world now knew Jamal's name, but they didn't really know his story. People knew he was arrested. People knew his brother was powerful, but most had no idea who Jamal truly was. That was about to change. A new interview. A famous journalist requested a one-on-one interview with Jamal for a national magazine. Journalist, people say you're a quiet man, a helper, but what made you choose this life? Jamal smiled for a moment. Then he began to speak. A painful childhood. Jamal was born in a small town where being black meant being watched. His father worked 2 jobs. His mother cleaned houses. Life was hard, but they taught Jamal and Marcus to never give up. Jamal had always seen unfairness around him. At age 12, his best friend was wrongly blamed for a store theft. That friend cried all night. Jamal never forgot that pain. Marcus, the older brother, chose books and law. Jamal chose people and action. Jamal, I couldn't sit behind a desk. I wanted to be where the pain was. A life of sacrifice. Jamal left home at 19. He traveled to places most people avoid. He went to small villages in Africa, war-torn areas in South America, and disaster zones in Asia. He helped build schools. He cleaned wounds. He sat beside crying mothers. He taught children who had never held a pencil. He earned no big salary. He didn't want fame. He just wanted change. Jamal, in interviews, some people collect money. I collect stories of survival, of hope, but never noticed even after years of service. He was never invited to big events. His name was never in the news. He didn't care. But after his arrest, everything changed. The truth hits home one night. Jamal received a letter. It was from a teenage boy named Deshaun who had watched Jamal's video. Dear Jamal, I'm 16. Last year I was stopped by cops too. They said I looked suspicious. Because I had a hoodie, I didn't fight. But I cried when I got home. After I saw your story, I felt stronger. Thank you for showing me I'm not alone. Jamal held the letter close. He didn't cry in public, but that night, he did. Marcus makes a move. Meanwhile, Marcus began working on something bigger. He invited leaders, lawmakers, and judges to his office. Marcus, if my own brother can be arrested for no reason, what about everyone else? He started building a new law proposal called the Equal Justice Act. It would punish officers for bias-based arrests, fund better police training, protect people's rights no matter their background. Jamal's case was now at the heart of a national movement. Jamal speaks at a school. The school invited Jamal to speak to their students. He stood on a small stage, facing kids aged 13 to 18. Jamal, I used to think nobody cared, but I learned that even small voices can be powerful. Don't let the world tell you who you are. Stand strong even if your voice shakes. When he finished, the students gave a standing ovation. Meanwhile, the officers reacted to police. Officers who arrested Jamal had not been seen in public, but a local news crew found one of them outside a courthouse. The officer looked nervous. Reporter, do you regret what happened that day? Officer, yes I do. We messed up, but it's not just us. The whole system teaches us fear. That interview went viral too. People were starting to see the truth behind the badge. One evening, Jamal stood by the window, watching the sunset. Marcus entered the room and said, We've been invited to the White House. Jamal turned slowly. Jamal, are they ready to hear the truth? Marcus, they better be. Narrator voiceover, from being handcuffed to standing before the president. The journey of one quiet man was shaking the nation. But what happens when justice finally knocks on the door of power? The city was changing. What began as one man's arrest had now become a voice for millions. Protests were spreading to other cities. Schools, churches, and communities were holding meetings. People were finally asking the question, what does justice really look like? And for the first time, the system had no easy answer. The law proposal inside a quiet government building. Marcus Green, the U.S. Attorney General, sat with lawmakers. He placed a file on the table. Its title read, Equal Justice Act, protecting all citizens no matter their color. Marcus firmly, we're not just fixing a moment, we're fixing a pattern. The act included strong punishment for racial profiling, mandatory police body cams, faster review of wrongful arrest cases, community officers trained in bias and compassion. Some people clapped, others remained silent, but all knew one thing: change was coming. The officers faced consequences. The 2 officers who had arrested Jamal were now under full investigation. A court hearing was announced. Media lined up outside. Inside, both officers sat at a long table. Officer 1, we judged without reason. We didn't verify his ID. We mocked him. I regretted deeply. But regret wasn't enough. The judge made a strong statement. Judge, this case is no longer just about Jamal. It's about every innocent person arrested because of skin, name, or silence. We must set an example. Both officers were suspended without pay. They were ordered to take training and appear before a civil panel. An apology in person later that day. The 2 officers requested to meet Jamal face to face. At first Jamal said no, but after thinking for a while, he agreed. They met in a quiet room. No cameras, no media, just truth. Officer 2, you didn't deserve what happened. We're sorry. Not just for the handcuffs but for the hurt we caused. Jamal, sorry. Doesn't erase it, but it's a start. They shook hands, but Jamal's eyes still held pain. He forgave them, but he didn't forget a speech that shocked the nation a week later. Marcus stood in front of Congress. He was about to speak to the entire country. Marcus, justice isn't just a word, it's a promise. And when that promise is broken again and again, people lose hope. My own brother was arrested for nothing. But how many others stay silent because they're scared? Today, we don't just pass laws, we listen, we change, we act. Everyone stood and clapped. Even those who once stayed quiet now raised their voices. A wave of support soon after. The Equal Justice Act passed in Congress. Cities started new training for officers. Many departments replaced force-first rules with respect-first policies. Young people began sharing Jamal's story in classrooms. His video became a tool in schools and police academies. A movement had begun. Jamal's moment of peace one evening. Jamal returned to the same cafe where it all started. He ordered a slice of chocolate cake, the same one he wanted for his mother's birthday. As he waited, the barista handed him a small note. It read, "Because of you, I feel safe walking home now. Thank you." A stranger. Jamal smiled. He sat by the window, watching the world pass by. For the first time in weeks, his heart felt light. Later that night, Marcus called him. "Marcus, the president wants to honor you. You'll receive the National Human Rights Medal next week." Jamal, "I didn't do it for awards." "Marcus, you didn't, but you earned it." Narrator voiceover. They tried to break him, but he became a bridge. Now the man they once silenced is helping a nation speak. The sun shined brightly over Washington, D.C. It was the day of the National Human Rights Medal ceremony. Inside the large hall, leaders, activists, students, and survivors of injustice had gathered. The crowd stood as Jamal Green walked onto the stage. He wore a simple black suit. No fancy chains, no spotlight demands. He stood tall, proud but humble. Beside him stood his brother Marcus Green, now one of the most respected voices in the country. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Their presence said everything. The award. The announcer spoke. "Today we honor a man who did not fight with fists but with calm. A man who did not ask for power but used his pain to build it. Please welcome Jamal Green." As the medal was placed around his neck, the crowd applauded loudly, but Jamal simply lowered his head and closed his eyes. In his mind he saw his mother. He saw his younger self standing quietly, watching injustice but unsure how to fight it. Now he had become a symbol of quiet strength. Jamal's final words. He stepped up to the mic. "Jamal, I didn't want this spotlight. I just wanted to buy a birthday cake. But the world gave me something else, a moment to be heard. I speak today for every person who was silenced, for every child who thought they were less, for every family that feared one wrong move could end in cuffs or worse. I forgive what happened to me, but I won't forget, and I won't stop." Tears filled the eyes of many in the crowd. The system starts to listen after Jamal's speech. Major police departments across the country announced new training programs. More victims came forward. Some officers quit, some changed, some admitted they were part of a broken cycle. Laws continued to shift. The Equal Justice Act grew stronger. A new hotline was created for victims of racial bias. Schools added Jamal's story to their justice education programs. The system had been shaken, and it was listening now. A message from the next generation. A few weeks later, Jamal received a package at home. Inside was a scrapbook made by a group of children from a small-town school. On the first page, it said, "Dear Mr. Jamal, you showed us that being quiet doesn't mean being weak. You showed us that even when the world laughs, we can stand tall. Thank you for being our hero." The brothers, side by side that night, Jamal and Marcus sat on a bench under the stars. They didn't talk for a while, just silence, peace, and brotherhood. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Marcus, you changed everything." Jamal, "No, Did you use your power? I used my pain." Marcus, "You still don't want to run for office." Jamal, smiling, "I don't need to be in power. I just want to stay in people's hearts." They laughed softly, two brothers. One from the courtroom, one from the street, both fighting the same war. In different ways. The camera slowly pulls back. Jamal walks down a quiet street. No flashing lights, no guards, no headlines, just a calm man, carrying a powerful story. Closing narration voiceover. He was arrested for being the wrong man, but in the end, he became the right voice. His silence became strength, his pain became a path, and his story became a spark for justice.